If you hire smart people, as we all try to, and then you give them the problems, but you also give them the solutions, then why did you hire smart people?
Just be prepared to change, going down the wrong track just because we're not prepared to change, right?
If change is hard, everything else will be harder. It's as simple as that.
If no one feels ownership or being part of the solution, then essentially it's like forcing that change or pushing people into something that they may not even have a proper understanding of.
If you are in leadership in the world of technology, focus on not just what you're doing, but how you're doing it.
Nick Eshkenazi is an award-winning Chief Digital and Transformation Officer with over 25 years of global experience in technology, data, and operations. Recognized as CDTO of the Year 2024-25 and one of the top 10 CDOs in APAC, Nick has held key leadership roles across major global brands including Woolworths, Astellas Pharma, Costco, Fanatics, USAA, and JP Morgan Chase. He's a visionary in AI, agile transformation, and digital innovation. Join us for our conversation with Nick Eshkenazi.
Excited to have you on the podcast, Nick. We've been organising this one for a while. We've had a few technical issues here and there getting it sorted, a few reschedules, but excited to get it underway finally. Thanks for coming on.
Julian, thank you. Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
No worries. It's I'm excited to get into all the questions. I know you've had a long career. I know you've had multiple roles across multiple companies as well as different countries, etc. So why don't you give us a bit of a background of your career to date? I know it's been a while and there's been quite a few different roles, but summarize it for those that may not be familiar with you.
Yes, thank you. Look, I've been really privileged over the years to, work for the greatest company on the planet, and through those endeavors, to also reside and function in many different locales. I'm currently in Australia, and for the last 7 years. But it all, as I look back, happened through some really special inflection points that I kind of borrow that term, but I call them the sliding door moments that often occur in our lives. And we all ask ourselves, is this a door that I need to walk through, or is this a door that I need to kind of let close? And so those doors, some of them have created some exciting opportunities to join a journey over the last 17 or so years, out of the 25 plus that I have helped organizations in different capacities. I have focused on enabling digital capabilities and transforming the organizations through the power of digital, but also through the power of revised and augmented ways of working, mindset, and operating models. And all of those things combined have brought about different level of performance, execution, delivering value, both for customers and for the stakeholders for those entities, if you will. And again, looking back, it's been really special and a privilege to be a part of many of those companies, and as a result, to help them on their journey, but also to further my own. And so hopefully that helps, and I'm sure we'll double click and deep dive into some of those.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate that. What first got you into it, I guess, as in digital transformation is made up of a lot of things, right? But I guess where did you start? Like were you what led you into where you are today, I guess?
Yeah, well, I probably resemble the standard profile that you've probably heard or interacted or met a lot of people that fall. But I had this, I grew up in Europe, and I'm remembering I was quite bored through school, and I wanted to finish as fast as possible, and so I finished my master's in 1 year versus the normal 2 program, and I was fairly young and wanted to wrap things up and wanted to go just make a difference. When we're young in our early 20s, we wake up in the morning, it's like I can change the world. I know I can. And then so I started basically as a software developer after graduating with my master's in computer science, and started kind of helping with different exciting initiatives and projects, but they all had this moment of attraction of there's something innovative, we're doing something that doesn't exist. And one thing kind of leads to another, and you meet people, and there's like, wow, I'm excited of what you're working on. Can you bring that to where we are? And so that led me through different countries, and ended up in the United States, and worked for two organizations there. A very one of the most successful, I would say, financial services company on the planet, USAA, in Texas, and then I was working for PACCAR in the state of Washington. And in both cases, there, my role had to do something with strategy, direction, execution, but always a big component of that was creating things that never existed before, or involving innovative solutions that create new value. So from those times is what I've kind of crafted of looking to create something that doesn't exist through technology, a new way of life, a new process, a new interaction channel. Um, from that time, I clearly remember. I know it's not new news today, but the first organization, and it happened during my time there, that launched an ability to deposit a paper check through a mobile device was USAA. Yeah, there was a time when paper checks were still in use and people were struggling to find a banking branch. And so the first company that ever launched that was USAA, and I was a part of that innovation. Uh, and it was always opportunities like that to drive something new and exciting that changes companies, changes industries, changes how we do things. You touched on, in your question, you touched on something, and I know I would unpack it a lot more, but often companies talk about, or individuals even talk about digital transformation. And when you hear the term digital, you normally think of technology, data, process, or a new tool that I need to adopt. My experience, Julian, has shown that is a lot more than that. And a statistic now has been proven that across many digital transformation, that it's more importantly is something else, and that is that how we do things, how we execute, is often more important than what we get done.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, and I'd like to dive into that a bit further. I think on the check side, that's interesting. I still remember when I was very, very young, one of my first bank accounts. I do remember having a as a young kid having a paper checkbook, but that was very quickly eradicated. And it was an interesting experience, I will say. But I've grown up mostly with my life with technology, and I've seen probably the earlier stuff, and grown up through to where we are now. And it's just fascinating, I guess, if you were kind of 40 years ago, to say what we've got available from a hardware perspective and a software perspective today is just, I guess, probably couldn't even be fathomed. And where the next 40 years is going to go, well, no one really knows. But diving a bit deeper into what you're talking about, then I think two of your big points is it mindset and the operating model shift, right? Like, two of the key pieces of this. And I totally agree with you, but a lot of my experience with it is that people absolutely, as you say, they look at digital transformation as a tool. Oh, we'll just put a tool in and that's how it works. Whereas 100%, it's so much more than that. A lot of the role and the job is the strategy, the innovation part of it, and actually, but coming up with how are we going to change how we do things, not just, oh, we just implement an off-the-shelf tool or a fit-for-purpose tool or something, and magically it just solves the business. So give us a bit more insight on that.
Yeah, so the how piece, we often forget it. and we say, hey, let's maybe even bring some consultancies or go buy a solution from a third-party vendor. And yes, that is absolutely a viable approach. However, the most critical things that have been proven now quite successfully are that we all realize that the future is unpredictable. And as much as we try to predict it, it's not going to happen. It's changing fast in front of us. As a result, the mindset that I've adopted is one of agility and adaptability. Instead of spending our time and energy in predicting the future, which trust me, in my past, I was always trying to be that person who's trying to predict the future, and I consistently failed. So instead of doing that, I spend majority of my time now is to help organizations to transform in a way that allows them to be more adaptive and more agile than ever before. And normally what that means is, first of all, bringing the agile mindset, but also changing the ways of working. And the ways of working on a daily basis is one of the most critical approach to take in order to facilitate a successful digital transformation. In reality, that what that looks like is organizing your operating model around the core solutions, products, or processes, and creating small cross-functional teams that include the capabilities, and I use the term capability to mean a human skill set and the tools that those humans need to be successful, and owning that product, solution, service, or a process end to end throughout its life cycle. They are accountable then for the innovation that they can introduce in the product. They're accountable for running that product, operationalizing it, fixing any incidents or problems or bugs that may occur, understanding feedback from their customers on their ongoing basis, knowing who the customer for that product is, and continuously evolving that solution for the benefit of the customer. And so you can apply this principle to almost anything that you can think of. And so creating small cross-functional teams around product solutions and services, and aligning the operating model around that cross-functional entity, those agile teams that create value all the time.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice, and obviously we can dive into that a bit deeper. But I guess higher level, with you've worked with a lot of, I guess, boards, executives in large companies, in a range of companies across different industries, all that kind of thing. One thing from my experience that I've seen is that a lot of people don't actually understand what's possible, and I guess there aren't, people think differently. They don't understand what's possible, and there's a lot of like, we've always done it this way, or we tweak something here or we tweak something there. For us to get those big gains without just implementing vanity projects or just shiny objects, whatever, how do we actually, what's your advice and your experience for working with those boards and demonstrating, I guess, a business case or an idea? Where do you see that typically comes from, where it's like, okay, we've figured out what we need to do, and now we need to figure out how we need to do it? But I guess a lot of those, not all of them clearly, but I'd say a lot of, people that aren't involved in the day-to-day of the tech side and understand that, I guess, what's possible, and aren't connecting the dots with the work side, the operating model side. How do you go about helping them understand that, or what's your approach on that advice?
It's a really good one, Julian, to unpack. A couple of reflections there on your question. One critical piece is to really keep in mind that it's important that the digital agenda, the technology enablement strategy, is always 100% in its possibility aligned with the company strategy, and you ensure that by, if possible, adopting performance management and objective management frameworks, things like, for example, the OKR framework, which I'm a big fan of. It's OKR stands for Objectives and Key Results, and it helps on an annual basis to define, here is what we're asking to achieve, and those are ambiguous or very ambitious objectives sometimes. And then how you measure them, if you've achieved them, is through the tangible key results against them. And then you incorporate also quarterly planning throughout that cycle to be able to say, here's what I'm going to achieve the next 90 days against my annual objectives. And then at the end of the 90 days, you pause, reflect, retrospect, and see what worked well that I continue to replicate it, and what didn't, and I need to stop it or change it. And then you try it again for the next 90 days, for the next quarter, with the goal is always continuous improvement. I'm becoming better by practicing, by trying new things, by learning. And so ensuring that I demonstrate how the things that every cross-functional team that we just discussed earlier has their own OKRs aligned with the company OKRs at all time. It's very critical. And if they're working on something that they cannot demonstrate how what they're delivering is aligned with those OKRs, maybe we just need to challenge them and encourage them to realign. And so that's the first piece of the puzzle is adopting company-wide a framework like the OKRs, and then ensuring that every day on an every basis, every person on the team, a small team, a hub, a larger entity, has all of their objectives and key results aligned to the company overall. The second component of it is, and I touched on it, but I cannot emphasize on how important that is adopting that mindset of continuous improvement. Creating solutions that you might have heard the term before is they're always ready to be consumed, but they're never complete. They're always in the state of evolving and getting better and maturing. They're like the solution that you and I are using right now for this podcast. It's in a state of continuous maturity. New features will be always created. It will get better. Maybe new filters. Maybe there will be an AI, component of it very soon that would allow us to capture real-time notes as those things are coming. And so whoever owns the solution as a team continues to improve it. But at this moment of time, it's consumable. How do I know? Because you and I are using it. So it's always consumable, but it's also always in the state of continuously improving. So adopting this principle of aligning what you're working on with the company objectives, number one. And second, striving for continuous improvement through the life cycle of the product that you own.
Yeah, very good. Very, very good advice. I guess my next question would lead on from here is saying the experience I've seen and stuff as well is that even when we get that, we're doing that reporting and stuff, a lot of this seems to be blocked, by decisions getting signed off by executives or whatever we want to call it, bureaucracy, whatever it is. There's not that empowerment there for the teams to actually continue moving. And sometimes the expectation can be, and as I think me and you well know, is that it's not necessarily a linear process from A to B, right? It's very much not that. We have to change things. We adapt our strategy, as you said, continuous improvement. It's never perfect in that regard where, we know the objectives, we know the key results, but we don't know exactly how we're going to get there, right? We may need to change our strategy, change our approach within reason as we are trying to achieve those things. So how do we make sure that as teams that are leading this, that we've got that trust and that we're empowered to move forward? And I guess what would you say to any of the managers, leaders, executives, whatever we want to put it out there, that have got teams under them that are working on these things and helping them understand this I guess process?
Yeah, it's look, very, very big question, and not an easy one, because it goes to values, culture, behaviors within the organization, and that often the leadership dictates that. So how we approach it is a critical piece. I would say that based on experience, unless the executive team, the leadership team, anyone in management aligns with that mindset of I am here to enable others' success, it will be a struggle. There is this and it's been coined in the management and leadership frameworks over the years. But there comes a moment in everyone's career where they have to ask for answer for themselves. Would I continue to grow and evolve my personal technical capabilities in an individual contributor capacity, or do I want to become a manager? We live in a world that most people see seniority and growth as becoming a manager, but often people don't get trained of what it means to be a good manager. And may I suggest that that switch is critically important. At the moment you decide to become a manager, you recognize that you, from that point on, exist for the success of others. And your success is dependent upon their success. And many people are not able to make the switch. And that's a critical piece. And so for me, subscribing to the approach of servant leadership has been the way to really make that transition. Is if you think of, the individual contributors are working for you, I would say it's more of a erroneous approach to the problem, not the right way to look at it. But if you look at slightly different, which is you work for them, you work for to enable their success, you ask curious questions. They are normally, how can I help you, or what should we do differently, or how would we approach this in a different way, or how can I personally assist you to be faster, better, more cost effective, more efficient, and then allow them to solve it, allow them to come up with the solutions. If you hire smart people, as we all try to, and then you give them the problems, but you also give them the solutions, then why did you hire smart people? So create big problems for sure, but then hand it over to good, solid cross-functional teams and ask them to come up with the solutions. You can challenge them, you can ask curious questions around them, but allow smart teams to come up with the right solutions for big problems.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic advice, and we need, I guess, intelligent, innovative people leading these initiatives. And I would say some of the experience that we've had is just seeing teams is that some of the teams are approaching like the digital transformation as a box ticking exercise, a checklist, if that's the way that we want to put it. And I know we've touched on a little bit already, but it's not. It's absolutely not that. If you think that implementing a new dashboard and implementing a new tool is digital transformation, just from my perspective, you couldn't be further from from what it actually is meant to be, rather than just getting deep down into what are those OKRs as a company, but then how do we change our way, as you said, our way of working. And so what are your, I guess, unpacking that a little bit more as to identifying what we're doing as probably not the right word, but vanity, or just doing for the sake of doing it, if that's the way we want to put it, versus measuring the things that we're actually moving the needle on without being cliche, but we're actually genuinely driving change and substantial growth and advancement for the business, I guess.
Yeah, I know we touched on this a little bit, but let's further deep dive. Organizing around product, services, solutions, and processes is critical. Creating those small, and I emphasize on small, because when the size of those cross-functional team exceeds kind of 12, 13, then it becomes harder to operate. And then literally staying out of their way, and being there to support them when they need help, removing obstacles, supporting them financially if they need budgets and the like, and then really participating in their own ways of working. In the agile mindset is called ceremonies, things that they do, being a daily stand-up or grooming their backlog or the work that's getting done, or proactively planning for the next quarterly cycle so that they can align their OKRs with the company OKRs, as you said. The we're touching on something that's critically important, is because, again, back to what we discussed earlier, Julian, because anyone who tells you that they can predict the future, unless it's a company they're actually creating the future, they can't really predict what's going to happen. The only way to really do this from a futuristic standpoint to create sustainability and resiliency for the organization that I know is to focus on one of the most important capability that an organization should have. And I know it may sound more like a play of words, but it is not that. And the capability that I'm emphasizing on is the capability of agility. Becoming adaptable, becoming agile as an organization is the most critical capability to focus on. Because when you're in an environment when you cannot predict the future and there are external and internal forces that would impact your strategy, would impact your direction, is to really be able to adjust and course correct as fast as possible. And the only way to do that for larger, medium size or larger organization is to be able to focus on being agile and being adaptive. And so by building that, nurturing that, teaching people so they become adaptive and agile and demonstrate it to the ways of working, we will continue to emphasize that change is here to stay at all times. The constant thing will be change, it will continue to change. Then that will continue to further the attribute of agility and adaptability within the organization.
Okay. Yeah, very, very good advice. I think a key point of it is just be prepared to change, if that makes sense. Prepared to change direction, prepared to adjust, as you say, as necessary, because without that, then we're not going to make that progress, and we're going to be implementing, possibly even going down the wrong track just because we're not prepared to change, right?
If change is hard, everything else will be harder. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, that's a very good way to put it. I guess diving a bit more now into your specific experience, like obviously, whatever you're prepared to share, but I guess what's one of the key projects that you've worked on, with the details that you can share, and I guess is there any one that come to mind where there's some key learning lessons out of it that you would like to share, of like what you did, and then kind of things that you adjusted from that maybe earlier on in your career, and how it's kind of shaped how you think now about these initiatives that you're pushing?
Yeah, look, I mean, I can probably pick any project, any initiative in the past and say, would I approach it differently if the time machine existed? I call this the time machine exercise, which is, you jump in the time machine and you can pick a date, and pick a date hopefully before the initiative started, but you can take with you all the wisdom and all the learnings that you've learned by going through that initiative. And if only, yes, not yet, or maybe never. The fact that we are not potentially speaking with people from the future means that the time machine has not been created, or it will never be created. That's my view, but who knows? I could be surprised. But at least we can do the exercise. So I can literally, Julian, pick any project. And so, for example, you can imagine the world we live, there has been a lot of cloud-based transformations where you've retired global data centers, companies, adopt that strategy. Why? Because the cloud gives them the agility and the adaptability that gives them, unlimited compute at a lower cost. It gives them an unlimited storage, unlimited, attributes for them to scale. It's very hard to scale in an on-premise environment because then you expend an enormous amount of capital and you're underutilizing those resources because you can never predict how much you're going to need. And then you're trying to buy for peak, but you never use that peak. So that's something to think about, is if, I realize also that the AI journey that we're all in over the last kind of 2 to 3 years has caused many companies to revisit their cloud strategy. But may I still suggest that the hyperscalers will continue to evolve and they'll find ways to provide lower cost AI workloads and GPUs. So that's something that I think we'll continue to see. But one of the most important learnings for me has always been is you can never do enough collaboration and proactive preparation of the change that you're about to do. Often, if you're in the world of technology or digital or data, all of us need to continue to remember and recognize that we create change with every single time that we click a button. And that change is often in the lives of other people, not in ours. None of us like when change is created by someone else and it impacts us. But if you're in the domain of digital, you're creating change in the lives of other people all the time. So recognizing that that happens is important, and involving them, including them in the change all the way from the beginning. When people are included and they're given an opportunity to co-create the change with you, those changes are much easier, they're much more effective. When others have an opportunity to put their fingerprint on the change before the change is actually rolled out, before the change is becoming a reality, those changes will be much more effective. So for me, the three C's here always apply, and they are communication. What's about to happen? What are we doing? Why are we doing it? Collaboration, working with others to design it to make it happen, and co-creation, literally making the changes by working together with others. Those three C's are the triangle of success.
Yeah, very interesting. I definitely agree with you on the co-creation one, or all of them, to be honest. But I'm saying the co-creation one, or getting people involved, because I've seen large initiatives in companies that have burnt to a degree, basically, because if no one feels ownership or being part of the solution, then essentially it's like forcing that change, or pushing people into something that they may not even have a proper understanding of. They feel like they haven't been able to voice, hey, we need to do this, or we probably should have considered this, etc. And so absolutely, where we've seen the biggest, I guess, stagnation as well, like the progress, the momentum gets halted, everything, because there's not that trust, right? There's not trust that we've worked together, we've got on the same page, we've worked out that, okay, this is where we're going and what we're doing, and we're all aligned. And so we move at the speed of trust is one thing that I often say. And so if there's that trust in the team, then we can obviously just keep pushing forward, because we've got the momentum, everyone's trusting one another, we've got a clear plan, we've got those OKRs, as you say, and we're clearly moving forward. As soon as we lose that, speed just slows right down, right? And then it feels like you're constantly fighting this battle, right? And then no one wants to be in that environment, or no one wants to be working in a project like that, and so they just die.
Beautiful. No, really well said. It is something to continuously reflect on in the ways of working, and say, is the trust there? Has it improved or has it diminished? If it's diminished, then what's causing that? In the sprint retrospectives, if your sprints are every 2 weeks, at the end of the day, check in on that trust and say, are we good? Are we connecting? Are we trusting each other? Are we continuously becoming better in how we're executing? And that would further the speed or diminish it, to your point. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, executing with the speed of trust. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think just diving a bit further into this as well, just across the board, is that what are some of the things that you've seen that detract that trust, like remove that trust from teams? Like, what's your experience with that?
Yeah, well, number of things, but let's unpack them that are practical, that we've all experienced it. One is, if we go through our agreed ceremonies and we aligned on OKRs, and then immediately after that, the direction changes. It stops people, and they're now curious and say, hold on, we just completed our planning cycle, and immediately after that the direction changed. What happened? And so if the source of changing directions can change, right? That's normal. It happens, especially in an adaptive and agile environment, right? Those are not oxymoron scenarios. However, whoever is changing the direction, they need to provide the clarity on why. So we touched on the important role that leadership is playing in that world. one of the most critical pieces of the puzzle, Julian, for me is being that the job of leaders is clarity through effective communication. If they cannot provide clarity, and what is clarity? It doesn't mean, speaking English in the most proper way, but rather providing the most, clear direction as to why are we course correcting? What are the reasons for it? What are the new expectations if there's new expectations? And more importantly, affording an opportunity to the team to say, well, because the course correction happened, here is this other thing that we committed to do we were no longer going to do. So that sometimes, the direction changes, new objectives are being added while the team needs to deliver on everything else that they committed on. Well, that is obviously not possible. So of remembering at all times, and this is a big actually attribute in an agile operating model, and that's continuously prioritizing within the available capacity, not adding new goals and objectives and new OKRs without removing OKRs. So affording an opportunity to the team to say, hey, because you course corrected, here is what this actually means. I can do 10 things. You added number 11, that 11th one became number 1. As a result, the old number 10 is now number 11, and I can no longer work on it. Are you comfortable with that? And then supporting the team and saying, absolutely, I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's fantastic advice, and just keeping communication is so important to that trust. And so many times we have that misalignment on community, just from our experience in projects. There's people haven't spoken up, or we haven't had proper communication, and then we deliver something. It's like, oh, that's not what I intended, but the communication wasn't there. It was completely misaligned from the start, and we can prevent so many of those problems. Not only that, just keep course correcting as we're going, keep that trust high, keep that communication high between teams. I guess moving on a bit now, what do you see, all the hype around now is AI. Everyone just talks about AI. It's not everyone, but yeah, it's like a lot of these hype around that. But outside of that as well, but what do you see as like kind of the big movers in the next couple of years? Is it really AI only, or what do we focus on the next couple of years for the businesses that are listening?
Yeah, wonderful question, Julian. As needless to say, we're all experiencing, once again, humanity is experiencing a significant inflection point driven by the power of this next evolution of AI capabilities. And we are in the generative AI space, and we're starting to hear concepts like physical AI and all kinds of other domains that would emerge. A brand new industry or industries are being created as we speak. Very, very exciting times. The if you now tailor that inflection point and say, what should a company do to maximize its potential? From my experience, and then I've done this both in my current role and in previous roles, is really uplifting the digital literacy of the organization, and doing that by focusing or democratizing the skills that empower the adoption of the AI solutions. What are they? Well, they are machine learning engineering and data science, and data core competencies. But really, the AI related capabilities and skills need to be democratized. If you look through the history of technology, even in our lifetime, those inflection points of success of cloud or the internet or mobile phones or social media or personal computing, even if you go a little back, they've all been successful because as a part of the strategy and rolling it out, it's all been about democratizing it, making it available to the masses at a lower cost point or at a lower point of entry. And if you remove those conflicts and remove the dependencies and you reduce the point of entry, then it becomes a democratized solution. So organizations, if they focus on democratizing the skills that are needed, the tools that are being used, making them easy to use, then you will have success. The reason we're seeing this significant adoption of, you know, millions and millions of users in a very short period of time on ChatGPT is because the barrier of entry is so low. And you can build something by yourself by just learning and studying very quickly. And that is when companies focus on democratization, success of the technology that they focus on will succeed. And so that's what we're seeing, and we'll continue to see that. So for me, the advice would be, if the company focuses on democratization of the skills and democratization of the tools, then natural successes will happen through solving those problems.
Yeah, fantastic advice. And I think just to add to that as well would be to anyone listening is that don't try and focus on doing everything at once as well, right? As in, if you've committed to a strategy, if you've committed to something, obviously, yes, as we said, there needs to be continuous improvement, there needs to be changes, we need to adapt and adjust, but so obviously so many companies, so many businesses, so many teams just try and do everything at once and end up doing nothing successfully. And it's just, we really need to, remain focused. And, if we pick a lane, or we pick, kind of an objective of what we're doing, or at least per team, per focus, that, we know that we can get those results and we can achieve. So, well, I appreciate your time, Nick. We've had a really, really good conversation. We could go on for a very, very long time about all these things, but I really appreciate it. Have you got any final things that you would like to add? Any advice for anyone?
Yeah, thank you, Julian. It's been special to connect and explore some ideas together. The advice again is, if we summarize and pick on the points that we touched on, if you are in leadership in the world of technology, um, focus on not just what you're doing, but how you're doing it, the ways of working, the operating model, how we're structured, is a huge, significant dependencies on what you're getting done. The second piece is build agility as a core capability within the entire organization. If you are not accountable for the company-wide transformation, then partner with the one who is, and work very closely with them to build that agility. And the third piece is recognize that everything that we create is always consumable, but it's never complete, it's never done. And that continuous improvement to be embedded into everything we do. There is a formula that's been proven out there that through the compounded growth, 1% improvement every day will drive more than 30 times improvement in a single year. For the math gurus among us, they can go and challenge me on that calculation. But really, the pound of compounding of continuous improvement, 1% improvement every day, 30 times better this year or more. Phenomenal. So why not do it?
100%. 100% and very, very wise words. Well, thanks once again, Nick. And for anyone listening, we've got a heap of other episodes on YouTube, Spotify, anywhere else that you get your podcast with a lot of great guests like Nick as well. You can check out our learning center at intuji.com as well for more great content. But thanks once again, Nick. Really appreciate your time. Appreciate everything you've shared, and no doubt we'll remain in contact.
Thank you, Julian, and thank you all of you for listening.